very happy at seeing that we had the meeting, and that we adopted the declaration. Before presenting our brief declaration, I would like to invite my friend Zoran to say a few words. In the politics of Western Balkans, or the Western Balkans, it's of course very important how the expansion procedure of the European Union will go on. And we, as leaders of the European Union, have some responsibility towards this part of the land for the welfare, the security of people, not only in the Western Balkans, but around the world. And nevertheless, even we, as leaders of this part of Europe, still have a special responsibility to do, together with Europe, or at times without Europe, take care of the security and the well-being. This is a responsibility that we cannot defer to the European Union. We have to be aware of that responsibility. And that's why the meeting was something special, and I do believe it was a success, particularly because the leaders at this summit we gathered, we didn't have guests, because usually when we had guests at all meetings, everyone was turning to the guests, to the host, Chancellor Merkel or President Biden, and just presenting the positions of their own countries. This time we didn't have a host. First of all, we didn't invite one because President Macron expressed his wish to come. We said that he would be welcome, but then he was impeded by other, it was the first time that we met together alone. We had to look into one another's eyes and tackle the most important issues like the inter-region, the wider region. I think we managed to get our job well done, but I have to say that this was one of the most difficult, demanding meetings where everyone was allowed to say everything, and so we had to do quite a lot, or almost everything, to reach a compromise. And as I will illustrate that compromise, I will have to say that this compromise is not an empty one. It has a deep message. It's a brief message. And I would like to ask the European Union to look at the region of Western Balkans as a whole, not as individual countries to be negotiated with by the European Commission, but the whole of the European Union, the Commission, the Council and the Parliament should consider this area a unique, uniform area or joint area. And this is the first time we have called upon the European Union to see this region as a whole. The second thing, we have emphasized the fact that Brussels tends to see this region and needs to see this region in a geopolitical way, because this is a geopolitical question of the European Union. It is an area surrounded by countries of the European Union, and unless the European Union does something, there will be a hiatus here. And the third thing we said, which previously we didn't say in such an extensive way, it is a mutual process. On the one hand, the European Union needs to accelerate the expansion procedure, and the countries need to accelerate their internal reforms. Today's meeting, although there will be no such impression still today, they will tend to show over time, but I think we have opened a new chapter in this procedure and in the politics of the countries of this region when it comes to terms of the Schengen expansion. It's not at all a secret that there were heightened tones, and we didn't see eye to eye, that we argued, but we came to a conclusion, to messages that we consider important for the people in the region and the politics in this region. I am very satisfied with the document we have, and I'm also glad and honored and proud that we managed to host that meeting at the 10th anniversary, which is certainly one of the most important meetings of this kind in this area. So we managed to navigate through the meeting until the end. Thank you very much, dear Borut. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not much to say after this exhaustive report of the negotiation procedures and the approval of the document. So you know more or less everything, because we have more than 10 years of history behind us. We have managed to come to a compromise. It's not the minimal common denominator, but we have managed to arrive at that. After negotiations, you have also said incomprehension or even I think that the agenda of the president of Kosovo, Osmani, was quite ambitious, and the Serbians were against that. But I can see that the agreement reached in the document is acceptable, because we are striving to help countries which are in an integration procedure where they haven't been in 15 to 20 years from now. It's not mentoring, it's not tutoring, it's not finding a career for any of us. I'm quite sure of that. We are rather trying to help countries, because we see our own interest in that as well. There are agreements between the countries, and there are things that the individual countries will not be able to resolve within the Brdo-Brijuni process. But nevertheless, today, in quite a tolerant way, in a navigation way, we managed to weather the storm and bring the ship back to the port with no injuries. So a clear compromise solution. We all back, and I still don't know where the next meeting will be, in Pristina or Belgrade. In one of those capitals we will meet somewhere soon, and that would be, from my point of view, everything for now. I would like to thank my Slovenian friends for organizing the meeting in such a beautiful surroundings. Michał Orešnik, what happened, Mr. President Pahor, with the part of the text that mentioned the inalterability of the borders, national borders? It is something that President Vučić asked for. I have, as I said, I'm part of the presidency of this procedure for 10 years. We've been preparing the final documents, and the question of national borders was never addressed, because that would threaten the summit itself and the conclusions of the summits. But what happened months ago, and is still a relevant question, whether it would be appropriate to think about changing national borders, I have to say straight away that I reject such thoughts. As a co-host, I propose that such text would be exceptionally part of that declaration. Of course, I was aware straight away that my proposal would be met with some restraint, and it was. President Vučić was not against discussing a ban on changing national borders, but he proposed such a wording that would prevent all the countries from recognizing Kosovo, because Croatia recognized the Republic of Kosovo, Slovenia recognized the Republic of Kosovo, and some other countries have recognized it. Not all the countries of the European Union have done so. so that it was clear that we could start this discussion, but it wouldn't be never ended. I wanted, maybe, or wished that we come to a result of my proposal that this could be understood as a way forward, not a way backward. But it was clear from the onset that President Vučić is insisting on that and is not wishing to recognize the Republic of Kosovo. So it would be an endless discussion. And since we had other important messages which are not to be underrated, because of the non-paper and everything that led us to thinking once again, that's why I do not understand. Zoran, yes, Mr. President said it all. Nothing to add. Let's go. Other? I would like to know whether the process of dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina is continuing. Yes, of course. We have. I think my colleague, the Croatian president, my friend Zoran, already answered to that question. We had a few new meetings here at this summit. Definitely the first time President Vučić and President Osmani met. When I met President Osmani in Pristina last Thursday, I have understood that she's coming to this meeting with a very ambitious agenda. And she was very ambitious at the meeting and insisting on some of the consequences. But nevertheless, as we took into account some of her requests, we managed to achieve some degree of compromise. Barely, but we managed to do it. Because it was evident that sooner or later she would like to achieve something that could be akin to diplomatic recognition through conclusive acts. It is something that we didn't want to do. And Zoran warned her about that. Because the Brdo-Brijuni process is, the aim of the Brdo-Brijuni process is not to find answers to questions we cannot find answers to, but we can definitely give support to bringing positions closer, to reconciling, to establishing mutual trust, to have common views on the expansion of the enlargement of the European Union. And this is what we also try to do. And that's why we wanted words to be marked. And the dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade is continuing, but it's something up to the two presidents. But I told both the media in Pristina and in Belgrade that I would hope that the process goes on and we will resolve these issues in dialogue and avoid complications for the benefit of the whole region and the European Union, and the Brdo-Brijuni process will be in favor of that, absolutely. Next. A question for President Milanovic. Can you take down the mask because I don't understand you? President Vučić said that you talked a little bit and that your relationship is quite decent. How would you describe that? We didn't have a chance of talking directly. We had no time. We had an exchange of views during the conference, of course. With both sides had something to say. It's nothing to do with Mr. Vučić or Serbia. I wanted to say another thing. As a co-host, co-president, I opened the meeting with that. We are here to help our neighboring countries of the region to come closer to the European integration, not to overcomplicate things. They don't share the same views. Some are more advanced to others are Northern Macedonia, which is the official name now, is currently in an impossible position. It's something we haven't addressed in today's meeting. It's not reflected in our declaration, and the Macedonians were not insisting that. But the fact is that they have a relatively advanced phase of gestation, and you can find these things in some chapters of Macedonian history. Slovenia and Croatia had a very lively and dynamic process with clear demands, and Slovenia wanted to obtain something for herself, a contact to open sea, and this was very clear. And I never seen Slovenia trying to put obstacles to Croatia or to damage Croatia. They were insistent and also annoying, but still we managed to agree on something. What today one of the members of the European Union is doing to the Republic of the North Macedonia, that's trespassing. To ask a candidate country who is in a negotiating phase for becoming a member to change the history manuals and define the genesis of their people as the neighboring country would like to. This is already trespassing into intimate space. It's something that should not be allowed, and I will be against that. And of course, considering what weight my words have, because of course you are fighting for your own interest at times, you are trying to find a solution, but if your goal is to defeat someone who's weaker only because he's weaker, that's not the way to do it. That's something we didn't mention in today's declaration. We discussed borders and non-papers because we know quite often who's the father and who's the mother. But for this non-paper, no one knows who the authors are. But we didn't address other issues that are of existential importance for the countries who would like to become members of the European Union. What about rule of law, justice, liberal values? Nowhere. So, complete pressure from the position of the stronger. And our history of Croatia says that we were a small country, always succumbing to the pressure of those stronger. But that's what we were addressing today for Macedonia as well. And I have no problem saying that in public. Please, go on. Another question for President Milanovic. How Brussels, how important you see this process and how Brussels sees it, how important it is for Brussels? When it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina, there is no Brussels, there is no higher level. That's what we discussed today. Me as a president of the country, I'm closer to the Balkans than Slovenia and know something about the Balkans because I have Croatians living elsewhere in the Balkans. I don't know which European leader would understand what we were discussing with Dodik, Komšić, Šešerović and other people. We are addressing problems of mid-management levels in different ministries who are defining the politics. Because the politics are defined in our region not by Angela Merkel, by Macron, but by mid-management in Brussels. And the whole of Europe will not look with an interest of how we are preventing right-wing parties to come up. Because Macron has no chance. But these parties are not as dominant as they used to be 5 years ago. And this will never have the opportunity to give some clout to mid-management Brussels administrators to North Macedonia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we have to feel that these countries really wish to become members of the European Union. And this, of course, costs some, not money, but it has political costs. Every leader is exposed with that. It gets votes lost. I would like to make an illustration to answer your question. When I was visiting the capitals of the countries of the Western Balkans, it was very clear for me that today's meeting would be a very demanding one, because COVID has exacerbated some of the positions. We had to overcome them, and that's why I knew that the negotiations for the declaration will be lengthy ones. And also I was aware that I was informed that Mr. Vučić, President Vučić, had to leave Ljubljana earlier because in the afternoon he has to meet the General Secretary Stoltenberg at NATO. When I called Stoltenberg this morning and informed him about the importance of today's meeting in Ljubljana, he postponed his meeting with President Vučić, allowing President Vučić to be up until the end of our meeting today. Yep, next one. No other questions? If I may. How important is this initiative and today's meeting for Slovenia? For us, it's even more important because in 2 months' time we are taking over the presidency of the European Union. And here in this document, in spite of the fact that there is no passage referring to any change of national borders, it is very clear that we are all against that. And this document has some added value compared to the other documents we've adopted in the past years, something that there was not there. If the Slovenian government wishes, if the European politics wishes so, they can draw some inspiration from this document when they are preparing the EU summit for Western Balkans, because there are a few important messages, a geopolitical view of the whole region as a whole, and seeing all the reform procedures as a mutual effort, and trying to understand the enlargement procedure as something that needs to overcome all the frictions. And one thing, let me say one thing in the end. I have the feeling, as my co-president and co-host and leader, one of the leaders of the EU member countries, that because of this fatigue from the side of the EU, the enlargement fatigue has brought the desires for enlargement, of course, to be lower. And most leaders believe that it is sustainable because we have peace and security here. But I would like to warn you that this will not be sustainable at Kalendas Graecas until enlargement resumes. This is a very important message if anyone wishes to understand it. Thank you very much.